Two-thirds of Americans are at risk to experience blackout. You could be one of them, sitting in the dark and cold for hours, for days, maybe even weeks. Are you ready to protect your family? You could be with Patriot Power Solar Generator 2000X. Folks say this new solar generator from 4Patriots is worth its weight in gold. Why? Because this generator has double the capacity and is expandable so you can run the big appliances like your fridge even longer. Or other devices like an electric blanket, microwave, RV air conditioner, or even an electric wheelchair. You also get 12 outlets, including 4 AC outlets, so you can power more devices at once, and 2 USB-C outlets, which can charge your phone 20 times faster than a regular plug. Best of all, this new solar generator is fume-free, safe to use inside, and never needs gas, ever. Over 150,000 Americans trust Patriot Power generators. Go to 4patriots.com/VTTGW to get your solar generator now. You'll even get a solar panel included free.
Hey, what's up, Mental Health Nation? Thanks for tuning in for this special edition of the Mental Health Warrior. As you can see, there's a guest on the show, and I'll get to him here in a second. Happy Valentine's Day for everybody. But real quick, I just want to remind everybody that my podcast is on Reads Across America Radio. You can see it on Fridays at 8 p.m. and Sundays at 10 p.m. It's super easy to find. You just download your favorite app, whether it's iHeartRadio app, the TuneIn app, or the Odyssey app, and you search for Reach Across America Radio and all the great program. I think they're up to 50 podcasts now, so I'm super excited to be partnered with them. Also up there on the screen, you see the QR code. You just scan that with your phone, and you can. That's to donate for Reach Across America Radio to ensure that all the veterans that have passed on can have that wreath on their gravesite during the holiday season. So super thankful for that. I want to thank Brian McCourt, Mr. McCourt, for coming on the show today. He is the founder and CEO of the Able channel. We'll get into that a little bit more later. But with that, Lynn, hey, what's been going on in your world today? And happy Valentine's Day, by the way, Lynn.
Hey, happy Valentine's Day, Cliff and Mr. Brian. I kind of wanted to touch on about Valentine's Day. Not everybody has that special someone, or maybe you're not just in that place in your life right now where you can celebrate that. But I feel like it's important to show yourself some self-love. So as far as mental health goes, self-love is definitely important. And I looked up some stuff that you can do to show yourself self-love today. You can take some downtime, plan a night with friends. Like last night, my husband lives in Virginia and I'm in Florida, so we kind of celebrate separately. So I went out with some friends last night. We played some trivia, and I actually beat this pool shark in 8-ball last night. So I was kind of proud of myself. So I did that. You can do a little spa night at your house. You can make a list of things that you actually like about yourself. I know a lot of people sometimes get in that negative space and they don't think anything positive of themselves, but think about some things that you like about yourself. Be selfish, do something that makes you happy, like take a yoga class, dancing, listen to music, wear something that makes you look and feel good, and buy your own flowers, like what Miley Cyrus says. So those are some of my suggestions for good mental health and self-care today.
That's great points. And with my mental health minute this week, of course, it's been all about love, right, and self-love, and joke, and we're kind of joking about that, but that's great points because I think sometimes we forget where you wear certain clothes. They can make you feel good, whether it's you're wearing your comfortable clothes when you get off work and you throw on that baggy T-shirt, or like me, you got the Veterans Trash Talk Mental Health Warrior T-shirt. Just something to make you feel good about yourself. And really, you know what, Lynn, thanks for that. I appreciate you bringing those points up, and those were really good. And so, hey, if you haven't put on that comfortable shirt yet, pause it, run over to your dresser and pull out that favorite shirt and throw it on and sit back and relax, because you're going to have an exciting show today. We have, like we said earlier, Mr. McCourt on. He is the founder and CEO of the Able channel. I've had the distinct honor of being part of the Surviving Suicide series, which I provided the link in the chat. You can go out there and check that out along with all the great programming. He will talk about that. But hey, with that, Brian, if you don't mind me calling you Brian, would you mind introducing yourself to the audience and tell us a little bit about yourself and about the Able Channel?
Sure. Well, Cliff, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. We very much enjoyed working with you and learning your story and how important it was to share it with so many others that need to learn about mental health and, of course, the subject of suicide. The Able Channel, we founded the company, geez, going back now 6 years, I guess it is. My son was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder about 25 years ago. My mom, Alzheimer's, best friend, cancer. My sister-in-law passed away from suicide. And so a whole host of health-related issues touched me in a personal way. And I'd spent most of my career in entertainment, marketing, television, and thought that it would be important to have a channel that's dedicated to healthcare, all things healthcare, because folks need support and they need credible information on demand when they need it. So that's the type of things that Able Channel is all about. We're available on Roku, Amazon Fire, and Apple TV, as well as on the mobile app. You have the website, the mobile web app site, website listed in your chat window there. So we appreciate that, and it's free. You can log in, just sign up and get access to the content.
Is it still when you go on the Able Channel that you just enter in the email address and I think a password, and then you can go in and see all the content that you have?
That's correct. Yep, it's just your email gets you access to the channel, and then you can watch the content that's on there. Now we keep growing as more and more health-related issues continue to come to the fore, but also partnerships. We work with some leading folks in healthcare, folks like Cleveland Clinic and Harvard and Ochsner and others that in the States that are leaders in healthcare, in providing a platform for folks to get credible healthcare content on demand. We all need help in some form or fashion. The statistics are pretty amazing just in healthcare in general. Literally 150 million Americans have a chronic health condition and or disability. So it's half the population. And then the other half of the population are the caregivers, right? The family members and caregivers who are, whether they're working with their parents who are elderly or their children. It's an amazing opportunity for us. As I said, statistically, just to hit on some key numbers, 1 in 4 will get cancer. 1 out of 36 births in the U.S. now is born with autism spectrum disorder, which is a staggering number, right? If you think about that, project that out over the next 25 years, that 1 out of 36 births in the United States has autism. So we're what we're doing is trying to provide accurate, credible healthcare content to support folks that are dealing with a whole host of issues, and focusing on the content that we worked with you on. I was, this was prior to the pandemic. We wanted to do mental health programming, and we were told, don't touch, certain subjects, right? It's the third rail, and suicide being one of those. And I thought, with my own personal experience, being touched by a family member, I said, no, we need to do this, right? And the channel is here to address those issues that other media companies are avoiding. We need to put the microphone in the hands of people who have been there, like yourself, and help guide others who are at risk. So, that's really the mission and vision of what Able Channel is if you think about it in a nutshell, it's kind of Netflix meets healthcare. That's really what our goal is to build a repository of content for folks, struggling with various health conditions.
To jump in with the Surviving Suicide series, one thing I want to say that I thought was great about the final product is is you have me telling my story, obviously, but then you had a doctor come on, and then he would explain, maybe some symptoms I'm going through, but he would give the medical background and tips with the video. And I just thought that was just a really great touch. And I think for somebody watching that and seeing what I'm going through and what I'm talking about, but then to pause for a second and have the doctor came on, to me, that was just amazing. And of course, I didn't know that occurred until I watched the program. To have the foresight to have a doctor come on and then explain those things that's going on, because a lot of times we don't understand that when you're going through something, or you have, and Lynn, you can talk about this because I know you have an autistic son. Just to have that extra layer, I think really was very helpful, and I think it added so much to the program,
Yeah,
to the series.
I was wondering, is it so? You said that you're available on Roku and we can download the app. Is there a membership fee for that, kind of like Netflix does?
No, right now it's a freemium model, so you can just download it for free and sign up with your email address. We want to a couple of things come to mind relative to that. So there's something called social determinants of health. I'm sure everybody's heard that phrase, but really, what does it mean? It's access to healthcare, and also, where you are socioeconomically, what zip code you live in actually determines the quality and access to care.
Right.
So one of the things that we didn't want was a barrier to entry, right? We didn't want a paywall to interdict you and prevent you from getting access to healthcare content. So we elected to just make it available, and also provide the email address so you could get updates on programming that was specific to your interest. That's what the reason why we did that.
I think that's really important. I was a young mother. I was a senior in high school when I gave birth to my son, and that was back in 2001. And back then we didn't have the internet or any content like this, and I had no clue what was autism. My son was diagnosed at 3 or 4 or 5, something like that. My mom was like, "Oh, you need to get him checked. He's not." He's not the same as us. And I'm like, oh, you're just yapping at the mouth. I'm like fighting my mom. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's probably just slow like his dad. But now my son is 23. And so we've had to look for different resources and stuff like that. But I think having a channel, to watch that and to see what other people go through, or even try to find other resources, would be super helpful for that. And I'm super happy that channels like you exist now, and different apps exist, because where else would we find this information? So it's good that we're putting it out there for the rest of the people. So thank you.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and thanks for letting me know your story. You're right. It's overwhelming if you're a parent with a child with a disability, whether it's a learning disability or social emotional. And I personally was overwhelmed, when we got the diagnosis. But he's gotten interventions and gotten all sorts of therapies throughout. Graduated from college. He's working a full-time job. He's gotten a lot of support along the way. But to your point, I kept thinking about people who were perhaps less fortunate than I to get those services. Why couldn't we put that in a video, right, and provide that to folks who may not be have access to that kind of care? So that creates a whole other utility for the channel, where we can provide, whether it's social skills training or OT or PT. All of that can actually be packaged up and pushed to the to folks that need it the most. So it's exciting for us.
We were talking before the program started, and Brian, you were sharing the story of your sister-in-law who had completed suicide. But one thing you brought up, and we were talking about, and I'd like to talk about it if you don't mind right now, is we talk about when you're in crisis or when something's going on, to have a plan. And you brought up a good point, and I would love it if you could just kind of bring that back up again, what you talked about, because it was something that we don't normally think about. as somebody who's been suicidal, who's been at that moment, it probably would have helped me had I had that, because had I not gotten lucky and my brother picked up the phone. And the amazing thing is, and if you watch the video, the series, is he wasn't even working in the department that day that he normally worked in. And so the mere fact that they were able to find him, and I'm in a state of, I don't remember that phone call at all, so I have no recollection of it. But the fact that they found him in a different area that he wasn't even normally working in was amazing. But go ahead and talk about that for a minute, Brian, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure. So the two things that I would say, Cliff, I want to come back to something you said previously, to set this up, was that having the doctors in the programming,
Yeah.
right? So when you're producing a show that's about a subject as difficult as surviving suicide, the subject matter, not the people, but the subject matter,
Yeah. Mhm.
You're kind of in a situation where, as a producer, you want to be able to recognize that the subject matter can be triggering,
Yes.
to folks, and at the same time, how do you balance what the story is and also provide the care for the person who's watching?
Mhm.
So I said, let's bring in doctors from the behavioral health group from Cleveland Clinic, um, who would effectively be watching the show with the viewer. And I love the fact that you mentioned that, because that to me was the best way to solve the issue of what you're watching on camera. Your story and others, the six other stories that stories altogether in the series. But if you had the doctor kind of watching the programming with you, that could guide the viewer to understand that the PTSD, depression,
Mhm.
those conditions are treatable, right? They're treatable conditions. That reassurance, that voice of authority, but at the same time started to lay the groundwork for a plan, which is what we discussed, Cliff, right?
Mhm.
Um, and the takeaway for me that kind of helped me to actually talk to others who were at risk during COVID, um, who would come to me and say, I feel suicidal, or I'm feeling depressed. Um, I learned from the show that you need to have, just as someone would have a plan for a suicide, you need a plan to not have a suicide. So
Yeah.
what are you going to do? How are you going to mitigate this risk? What are the things that you can do? Of course, call 988 in the States, right? But also, who are you going to call that's on your list? Calling the police, getting the help around you, as an alternative path to the completion of a suicide or the attempted suicide. So that to me was one of the most important learnings, right? Is to plan to not have that
Mhm.
happen, and that you can have a plan to effectuate a different outcome. And I thought, that was amazing. And one of the other things that happened, I'll just say this, on when your episode premiered, was that we got inundated with people who were telling us, your program saved my life.
Oh,
And
really?
then NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness,
Mhm.
they tweeted that out, that this program will help save lives. And think about that from our perspective. I mean, we were recently nominated for an Emmy Award. We just won two Anthem Awards for surviving suicide. Um, there's no amount of awards, more powerful than that, right? That you help
Yeah.
save a life.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And that's something that when you do what I do, and what Lynn and I do with the mental health warriors, we have no idea how we're affecting lives. I had no idea with what you said until you just said it. That people were reaching out and say, "Hey, you saved my life," or "This saved my life," and that really makes me feel good, because it's not easy to go through that process of telling my story, right? And I do it a lot, and people say, "Oh, well, you make it seem so easy and all this," but it's not, because you're reliving those horrible times in your life, and you're retelling that over and over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And especially going through the filming process, if somebody's never been through that, It can be very intense. And Vincent, who was a producer of the series, I guess, he was very good about hitting at the moments. And I remember, if you watch the video, I'm talking and I'm on a couch and it's dark, but I'm telling you, it was in the middle of the night. We'd been filming all day and we'd been up early in the morning, and now it's 12 o'clock at night, and we'd been doing this for 14 hours. And he looked at me and says, "Okay, I want you now to tell me your story." And I know why he did it, and it just hit me just now while we're talking. He did that because that was at that moment downstairs in that house that I attempted suicide. And we were upstairs in my brother's house, not downstairs. We were upstairs. But I think in Vincent's mind, he was waiting to close to that time that I had attempted to have me have that talk. And I didn't realize that till just now while we're talking. But I think that's why he did that. But it's something that I caution people about, because if you're not mentally strong enough to tell your story and to get the reactions from people, be cautious about it. Because before I retired, people found out about it, my suicide attempt, and they would talk to me, or they would not talk to me. They would avoid me. And so it changed the dynamic of the work. And then also, one thing the video did is I said the number of sleeping pills I took. And when my family watched that was hard for them, because they knew at that moment that I absolutely wanted to kill myself. Up until that point, I kind of said, well, I really didn't want to. Well, in that video, I said the number of sleeping pills I took, and they knew for a fact that I did. And so you have to be cautious of that, and knowing that it can cause extra stressors on your life. And you guys were great. You guys offered counseling and other things for the people that participated in that, and that was really awesome. That you at least offered that to the people who participated in the series. And I will tell you that not only my story, but the other 5 stories are so compelling. And when somebody tells a story from their heart, right? When I give my speaking events, I'm very emotional. I cry, I get upset. But I think it's for me, I have to be honest on this podcast. And Lynn, you can jump in here in a second. We're very honest when we talk, because I think that's the only way you can resonate with people, is just being as truthful and heartfelt as you can.
I agree with that. Cliff, definitely have to be truthful and heartful. And I actually had a personal experience this past weekend. So, with Irreverent Warriors, the connections that we make definitely help. This guy took me to the side, and he's our photographer from Tampa, and we've become really good friends. And for some reason, a couple weeks ago, I just got something in me to just call him to see how he's doing, remind him about our event next month, March 23rd in Jack's Beach, and see how he's doing, just catching up with him. And he said, well, he wasn't feeling too well. He missed his flight to DC. And I was like, well, I hope you can get your flight to DC the next day. So he calls me when he's in DC, and I'm just talking to him normal, like a regular friend. And like, hey, what's up? Are you having fun? Are you doing good in DC? Blah, blah, blah. Well, come to find out, when he pulled me to the side, he said, Len, that was my lowest point in my life, and I was going to kill myself. And I called you, and you answered, and we just talked like regular friends. And he said, because of that, it made me want to live. And it made me realize that I did not want to kill myself. And so I was like, wow, that is so powerful, just to
Wow.
be there for somebody, or just to talk to somebody, And that's what we always say at our events, is that the connections you make, it goes deeper from the events. You got to continue those connections outside through your life. And it just it got me shaking. I was like, wow, I can't believe that actually works, um, and what we do actually works, because our mission is to prevent veteran suicide. It's an unconventional way. We get together, do hikes, and hoorah throughout the streets. But it definitely works. And I want to say about our show, I posted on my Twitter, and I have a pretty good following on X. And I remember I had a couple comments, and this is when we aired the episode with Doug, and he told his story, and he told
Mhm.
his story about being in a dark place and getting those thoughts of ideation. And we had comments that said, hey, this really helped me go through what I'm going through. It really resonated with me. Thank you for sharing. So
Yeah, you never know what people are going through, right? They can always
no.
put that facade on in public and of course on social media. You just never know, and we try to help. And Lynn, thank you for sharing that story, because you never know when you can get a phone
No,
call,
you
and
don't
just
ever know.
like
And
what
I
Brian
was
was
just talking to
saying.
him as a friend too. Like, I didn't know he
Yeah.
was going through things. I was just like being my regular bubbly self. So,
Hmm.
yeah.
And that's so important about having a plan. But one thing I've been talking about, and Lynn, this is with the cell phones, you can put them to have a quiet time or silent time. And I ran into this where somebody had called somebody, and then they wound up completing suicide. And they tried to call, but the person's phone was on silent because they were asleep. And so it goes back to when Brian was talking about to have that plan, is if you have that one person that's part of your plan, be sure to have that conversation with them so they can put you in your phone as emergency contact. So then if you are in crisis and you do call them, that their phone will ring. But I tell people this all the time: if you call somebody and they don't answer, please to God, don't take that as a sign. That is not a sign for you to complete what you're thinking about. Freaking call somebody else. Call 988 now. Call 911. Text 241 241. That is not it. I mean, it could be just as simple as their phone went dead, their phone's on silent. There's a million reasons why somebody didn't pick up their phone, or maybe they're just taking a break from social media because they needed to for their own mental health. But that's one thing, good thing about Veterans Trash Talk, and why they started the Facebook page, and why we do what we do with Veterans Trash Talk, is because it gives veterans a space to go. And Brian, I know you don't know this, but on veterans on their Facebook page, we've had veterans at 2 o'clock in the morning in crisis, and there'll be no less than 50, 100 people that'll hit them up and talk to them. And it happens almost, if not weekly, almost daily, that occurs. And it's no telling how many countless veterans' lives that we've saved over the time. And with the reverend soldiers or warriors, reverend warriors that Lynn's part of, it's just, it takes a different way of thinking and a different way of doing things. And I think when the Able channel came out 6 years ago, you guys were at the forefront of it. I mean, nobody was doing this and nobody was talking about it. Just like you were saying, when I started talking about suicide and mental health in the military, nobody was doing that. And nobody publicly was doing that. Absolutely. But, just like me and any survivor, we feel like we survived for a reason. But, Brian, for the Able channel to start that, but then to continue it, is pretty amazing.
One of the things that we try to do, a couple of things I'll say, that the plan is so important, right? The plan to not have it happen or to complete it. It's more than just one person. You got to have, what you just said there, right? Resources to go to that are not just on one person. And you can have a conversation with people. If I'm in a bad place with my mental health, I want you to be one of the people in my circle that I can talk to beyond, as you just alluded to with social media. So, having folks that you can rely upon, and then the other things that you just mentioned, the 911s, the 988s, the resources. There's always a resource. That's the other thing that came out of the series that I was astounded by, that, getting help, it's treatable. You've got to just reach out. And that kind of that wall, right, by producing the show and calling it Surviving Suicide, we also have people who are family members who were left behind, or people who were successfully, had completed a suicide, and what they do in their life now to help others. And part of this is about destigmatizing mental health,
Yeah.
right? That's the most important thing. Is like, I had conversations about what we should lean into first in terms of content. And we thought mental health, as I said, prior to the pandemic. And some of the feedback that we got was pretty amazing, to be honest. It was actually negative, right? There's no money in mental health was one of the first things that was kind of
Yeah.
shocking to me, right? That don't do that kind of content because there's no money in it. Uh, I'm sorry, like how's that even a thought in, right? From our perspective. And we said, look, no, we want to go to places where people are uncomfortable because those are the places where the pain is, right? And we want to go there to find ways to remedy that pain, to make, provide resources. So the stigma of mental health is your mental health is your health. It's all things. It impacts everything. All functioning systems of your body are impacted by your brain and the way you think. And so we've got to treat the mental health as though it's healthcare. It is its own specialty for sure, but it is so important, and that the destigmatization of it at all ages and stages, because this is not just certain portions of the population. It's doctors, it's lawyers, it's soldiers, it's kids, right? It's all ages and stages of life. And so the prioritization of mental health is such an important thing, but also understanding that it's okay. It's okay to feel the way you feel.
Yes.
It's and in some cases it may be a normal trauma response, something that you've been through. So the idea of starting to think about it differently, to realize that there are resources out there. It's not from our perspective, we wanted to show other people who had been there and then have authoritative behavioral health doctors kind of guiding people, but also to recognize that people can see themselves in others, right?
Yes.
That they recognize these stories and that they may have had those feelings, and that from Able Channel's perspective, we always want a call to action. What you just watch something, what can you do next, right? That's the beauty of what it is that you're providing, not just the discussion around it, the normalization of discussion around mental health, but then providing resources, that there's a community here. The thing that struck me so profoundly was that you said, that someone cares about you. And what we're saying is it's not just one person. There's a whole community of people. There's humanity around you, compassionate human beings that are here to support you. That's the end message of what Able Channel is really trying to do. But destigmatizing mental health is so critical.
And it's a worldwide problem. I've been in Italy for 2 months, and there's a local restaurant that we go to. And my wife's been in Italy before; she's fluent in Italian. I'm starting to take classes. Anyway, so I just happened the waiter. We just became fast friends. I'm just that kind of person, right? And he speaks kind of broken English, and we're figuring it out. But there's a mental health crisis in Italy. There's a mental health crisis in Switzerland. That's why EarKick, the mental health app we were talking about, kicked off. And so, it's these type of programs, because you can translate the programs to a different language. That it's not only going to help people in our community in the United States, but help people worldwide. And I think people don't realize it. And he never served in the military. He didn't do this, but he was in a bad motorcycle wreck and one leg shorter than the other. And then he was in the restaurant. And then all of a sudden his Achilles tendon tore. And so now he's home laid up, worried about losing his job. And we've been texting on, WhatsApp, and I just been kind of helping him. But this is a person 2 months ago that I didn't even know existed. And so you just never know who you're going to come across in life and who that person is, just like Lynn was talking about and Brian, you talked about. You never know when you're going to come across that person and help them. And somebody may be watching the programming on the Able channel. And I guarantee you in one of those 6 stories, it's going to affect somebody because, every roughly, 42 seconds, somebody completes suicide. And every 43 seconds for the rest of life, somebody wonders if they could have done something different. And that's why this plan that Brian talked about is so important, because as somebody who's been in that moment and who didn't want to live no more, I would have missed out on my 2 boys. I would have missed out on getting to know both of you on the program and everybody inside of Veterans Trash Talk. I would have missed out on all that. And so even though your life is dark now, and I get that. It doesn't have to stay that way. It can change, and you can change it, and you have the power to change it. And that's why, Lynn and I do the podcast and the things that we do, because, especially with my mental health minutes, is I just try to look at things differently, or try to help people with things that I'm going through. I talked about, I have a TBI injury and ADHD because of that. And there was one morning where I was just going to go to the gym, but I needed to move things up into the storage area. And I did that. And that just turned into doing another thing, doing another thing, and doing another thing. And I just stopped and I did a video for it, because it wouldn't have ended. And now I'm 2 hours late going to the gym because my brain just went on tilt. And one thing I learned is that I just had to stop and leave. And so I dropped and walked out. And I thought that was so important for me to just make a video in that moment. And it's not a very good video, because I'm not a very videographer by no means. And I make horrible videos, but I just do them anyway, right? I never do a second one. I just do one and send it, and I said, screw it. I just don't have the mental capability to edit things. But I thought it was just important to make that video to say, hey, if you have this, I understand that. And I know there's going to be good days, and I know there's going to be bad days. And some days you may have 2 bad days and 1 good day, or 2 good days and 1 bad day. And that's kind of, what we want to project, is that's just life. It can't always be roses and cherries. That's just life. And so, it is what I try to do and try to portray. And Brian, I think with the Able channel, and I know you have more than the Surviving Suicide series. So what other programs do you have currently on the Able channel right now that people can go out and watch? Besides the Surviving Suicide series, because I think there's 2 others, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, so we're always in development on new programming, but we wanted to start with actually, we started with disability, hence the name Able. That was the kind of the impetus for the brand. And again, populations that are vastly underserved. When you think about disability, it's like 1.4 billion people globally. So it's bigger than the entire population of China. And there's really no content for folks that are living with a disability either, right? Yeah. So we produced a series called Together We Are Able, and that is we're into the 3rd season on that program. People living with various disabilities, but we actually aired that program. It aired nationally on all the major networks, and that was the one was nominated for the Emmy Award, because we're going after programming and stories of real people dealing with real things. Surviving Suicide, obviously, is we want to do another season of the program, and delve deeper into more stories, but also build out, to your point, a community so that there's resources available. We're also working on a multitude of programs, especially around mental health, but also, the top 10 conditions that most American families are facing. Around things like cancer and diabetes and obesity, and things that are also derivative. As I said before, one condition can cascade into a multitude of conditions. So we're really focused on the top 10 conditions in the U.S., but mental health continuing to be a major component of the content we produced. You had mentioned something that I was struck by, because I know you were in the Pentagon on 9/11 in your story. We actually interviewed a gentleman who was in the one of the World Trade Center towers and got out and lived to tell the story. But he talked about something called post-traumatic growth. So there's post-traumatic stress, and then there's post-traumatic growth, because he really shared with us something that I thought was very profound. He said, when you have a trauma, you go to a therapist, and the therapist is trying to tell you, I can make you as good as new. You'll be as good as new. And his point of view was, no, you'll never be as good as new, but you can be better, which is, that turn is so important. It's such an important thing, because if you could take your trauma and transmute it into something positive, right, that it can actually make you a better person. That's really the goal of what we're trying to do with Able. And, we produce content about all different conditions. and resoundingly, I don't care whether it's a child with cancer or an elderly person with a diagnosis of Alzheimer's. What we're finding is that the human stories of the human spirit are universal. This is a really important thing for people to see people going through similar things, and that we help each other, right? That you had mentioned previously, we were talking about the impact of social media. One of the best byproducts is the ability to identify with other people's pain and joy, sorrow, but also action. What else can we do, for each other and with each other? And I think that's, weekly that.
Well, I think, I just try, I'm nobody special. I'm just Cliff the guy. I just do what I can because I believe I survived for a reason. But we're going to wrap this up here. But before I say my final words, Lynn, do you have anything else you'd like to jump in? And then I'll say something and we'll give Brian the end.
I really don't have anything else to say. I got our website, www.veterantrashtalk.com. You can go on there for all our episodes and our merch, especially that one shirt that everybody loves. Also,
it'll be a Trigger Pansy shirt.
And then my for Irreverent Warriors, my hike is coming up in Jax Beach. So if you want to hang out with me, come on March 23rd. 2024. It's a Saturday. Saturdays are for Silkies, and we're gonna do a Reverent Warrior hike around Jax Beach, Florida. And that's all I have to say.
Oh, well, thanks for that. And thanks for the reminder. And we've dropped a link to the Veterans Trash Talk link there. And be sure to go out for 4 Patriots 2 at running at the bottom. And once again, this program will be replayed on Reads Across America Radio at Fridays at 8 p.m. and Sundays at 10 p.m. Super easy to find, just like I said early on. You just download the iHeartRadio app, your TuneIn app, your Odyssey app, search for Wreath, and then click on Reach Across America Radio for all the great podcasting. They have over 50 podcasts now. I think my times may change, not too for sure. We'll find out later, and I'll update you guys with that. But with that, Brian, I'm going to pass it over for you to give the final word. And I just want to say before I do that to you, my heartfelt thanks to you and to your family and to everybody at the Able Channel for putting out content that is something that is very necessary, that needs to be talked about. And I implore all my viewers to go out and visit the Able Channel, look at their content, because it is free, and the stories that they have are truly amazing. And something that one things I talk about is, for me, I like to try new things. And so I did yoga last year. I'm doing Pilates now. And because I think the physical fitness helps the mental fitness. And I try to throw in all little aspects of doing everything. And that's why I think Irreverent Warriors are so good, is because it gets people out of their space, right? Mm-hmm. And I talk about this is, if you're in a bad place, change your place. Get up, walk out of that dark room, walk into another area of your house, do something different. It could just be something little, but do something different to change your way of thinking. But I want to thank everybody for tuning in. And with that, Brian, I'll pass it over to you for final thoughts.
Well, thank you both for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about the show, and also, to support your mission. Let's put it this way. I mean, I have a personal affinity for the military. My dad was a World War II vet, and a Navy vet, and then he went after the war, joined the Army. So you go figure. He's the only guy I know that's served in 2 branches of the service. My brother was a Vietnam era veteran, and my partner Paul, his father was killed in action in Vietnam. Mm. So we have strong affinity and ties to the military, but we also recognize that there are deficits in supporting the military after their service. So we want to work to support as many folks as we can, but with a specific focus on military and veterans and families, because the debt of service is profound. And from our point of view, we want to be able to have a consistent dialogue, and also access to resources going forward. So we also remain open to your constituents, your listeners, etc. We will produce content with people if they have stories that they want to share with us. We're open to ideas. we want to tell stories that people want to hear, and that can also be the most helpful. So I'll finish with that. The Able channel is here to serve, and that's that's the least we can do, for the military families.
Well, Brian, I want to thank you for that, and also they can email you through the website, right? They can email you directly. I think I remember that. But hey, maybe we can work on another project, sometime down the future, in the near future. Again, that would be great. Lynn's a Navy veteran. Of course, my wife's still active duty Navy. That's why we moved to Naples. But hey, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Be sure to go out and check out all the links. Check out the Able channel and all the great programming. You will not be disappointed. I will tell you that the production of it was top on. I mean, it was just amazing, and the quality of the videos are truly. You guys spared no expense, Brian. You guys truly put together movie quality programming with those programs, and I can say that for a fact because I was part of it. You guys did not do anything on the cheap, and I think that's why everything is the way it is. And I'm rambling on, but I want to end it right now. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Have a great week. Be sure and check out the Mental Health Minutes. Be sure to check out all of the content we have on veteranstrashop.com with all of our podcasts, and of course with my Mental Health Minutes that I post across all my social media. And once again, be sure to go out to theablechannel.com. The links provided to check out all the great content. But everybody have a great, safe day. Enjoy your Valentine's Day. And just like Lynn said, go ahead and put on your favorite shirt or something to make you feel good about yourself. Everybody take care and have a great day.
This is a food warning. The UN warns of an unprecedented global hunger crisis. In fact, it's predicted by 2030 that 800 million folks will struggle to feed their families, which means two dangerous things for you. Number one, higher prices at the grocery store. Number two, less food available. And when panic strikes, it will be chaos, making it even harder to get the food your family needs to survive. That's why it's vital, more than ever, to have a survival food stockpile. Introducing the deluxe 3-month survival food kit from 4 Patriots. It has 688 servings of meals for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, with delicious recipes like pancakes, mac and cheese, Aztec chili, and potato soup. They've even got spaghetti and lasagna. This isn't your typical survival food, and over 200,000 smart Americans agree. This is survival food that actually tastes good. But best of all, it's designed to last up to 25 years. You can stash it away and be confident that when a disaster strikes, you and your family will be ready. Go to 4patriots.com/VTT to get the deluxe 3-month survival food kit and the peace of mind you deserve.